screen? Okay. So,
Yes.
great. So just want to quickly jump in. There's been a lot of talk. I think those of us, those in Silicon Valley and in other hubs know that psychedelics is quite a trendy topic. Tim Ferriss and many others have spoken a lot about it and how it, how there's potential for it to help us solve world problems. What I want to be clear on is what we'll be talking about, at least in this talk, is really the intentional use of psychedelics, and not necessarily going to festivals and going out and dancing, but talking about how to be really intentional with the use of psychedelics, and in particular my experiences with ayahuasca, and I'll talk a bit about that and how that can the potential I believe that has in elevating our leaders in our society. So real quick, my story, probably going to need to skip over most of this given the timing, but I was a tech entrepreneur, built a couple tech companies in New York, had success, didn't feel very fulfilled in the work that I was doing, didn't feel I was really contributing to society. Largely was in the social marketing, social media world, helping large companies sell products that people didn't need and that were not healthy for us. And, at some point really just got set on my journey to really rediscover myself and the contribution that I could make to this world. I went through, really a couple-year journey where I experienced a lot of different modalities. And ayahuasca was one that, really helped shift a lot of the ways that I thought about the world. In particular, moving a lot of from a very analytical mind more deeply into my heart. And I think my experience since then has been kind of relearning how to lead, how to build, how to create with from that space. And then the work I do now with One Heart is really helping other leaders down that path of learning as well. And so with One Heart, we largely focus on 1 week long retreats that are in the middle of an 8-week program where we bring leaders, change makers, entrepreneurs from all over the world together on a journey that involves 3 ayahuasca ceremonies, also involves yoga, meditation, breath work, a lot of other modalities, and a lot of real quality time together with amazing group and tribe of people that stays very tightly connected in community afterwards. And so, my mission here is to really identify how really intentional uses of psychedelics can really help our leaders to create and build from a much more conscious place. And I really believe there's a massive opportunity for transformation, and ayahuasca is one way, and psychedelics are one way that can really be accelerated. And obviously, we see what's going on in our world, especially now. There's more and more a need for us to really accelerate and have more and more leaders thinking about problems that truly matter. And there's some deep truths that I think many experience fairly universally, at least with ayahuasca, and with kind of going deep into experiences. And these have the ability to really shift pretty meaningfully how we think about our lives and hopefully the work that we're doing. We are one, and hence the name One Heart. But this is a message that comes across pretty clearly, through our journeys, through these experiences, and obviously can often be at odds with people traditionally do business. Same goes for we are one with nature. So really thinking about ourselves as part of a much broader ecosystem. Time and space as illusions. So we function and our lives are largely based around these concepts of time and space, and they don't actually exist in the way that we conceive of them, and that has some meaningful shifts for how we operate. The power of surrender is really powerful one and an important one for me in really learning how to live our lives and still create and still build, but from a place of surrendering and really experiencing what we're meant to experience, following a path versus really forcefully trying to create. And then love over fear is another big message. A lot of our world is based around fear, and we manage around fear and build companies around fear and operate. And there is another and more powerful way to operate. And so I just quickly want to go through just kind of a few takeaways for what these mean. And I've written a bunch about this on Medium as well. I can point people to some articles if that's of interest, but competition is an illusion. So, I mean, we're building our businesses, building our careers based on this idea of competition. And what that really means is we're taking our focus away from what we want to be doing. What is our mission? What is it that we're actually trying to create, and putting our focus elsewhere? And by removing that attention and intention, we're creating something else. We're creating competition. We're creating force and conflict. And what I think is going to be powerful, I think, in the next decades to come is how do we all come together? How do we really focus in on what do we want to put out in the world and be laser focused on that? And I think that's where the most powerful outcomes, most powerful creation happens, when we're able to really double down and focus in on what is it that we want to create, versus how do we beat the other guy, which can be a very short-term mindset. Sustainability equals a partnership with humanity and nature. And so there's a lot of talk around triple bottom line and what that means. But I think really thinking about what we're doing to create long-term success more and more in this world is going to mean that we are in alignment with people on this world, where we're creating something of value that helps humanity, with the planet, and profit can be a good source of creating financial and resource sustainability for the business. So really aligning all of those. And BlackRock, the largest investment firm in the world, has recently came out saying that they will only invest in companies that have kind of a broader sense of meaning and purpose in the world and are creating sustainable solutions. So more and more there will be these shifts, because it's not only the right thing to do or what's best for humanity and our planet, but it is what's going to deliver the best business outcomes as well. Life is infinite and exponential. So we operate mostly in some level of a scarcity mindset, believing that there's only so much time, there's only so much money, there's only, so much of whatever. And broader way of looking at the world and its infinite possibility. And my experience on this journey has been, when I'm able to do that, when I'm able to step outside what is conventional thinking, much more is possible. And that may be people showing up that amplify the work that you're doing, and that may be resources or steps that are skipped in ways that you couldn't imagine. But there's a lot of ways that we actually be much more powerful than we think, shorter time. And a lot of times we have these kind of mindsets that it's going to take this much time and this much money. And when we really think infinitely and we really open up to possibility, a lot more can happen. It's a dance, not a marathon. So I think as entrepreneurs, I know, at least with my story, it was always a slog. It was always a fight. There's always adversity, the next thing to overcome, working 60, 80 hours a week and thinking that was the only way to be successful. And really, it's much more of a dance. And this is really where surrender comes in. If we're able to take a step back, if we're able to tune in and be more connected, to our purpose, to our meaning, to what's happening all around us, we can really move and sway and operate in a much with much more ease and with much more success as we're able to really follow the signs and what's occurring right before us. And then lastly, trust overpowers fear every time. So our businesses are largely operated by fear. We're thinking about, we need to get to this next milestone so we can raise our next round of investment. And that drives everything that we're thinking about and that we're doing. And, or some other, or just we need to stay alive, especially during these times. We need to drive revenue so we can keep the business going, or we can keep our employees on, or we can feed our families. And while these are obviously, valid concerns, they're going to lead to a certain type of outcome. They're going to lead to short-term thinking. They're going to lead to us, really following, creating whatever we think is next to overcome that fear. Whereas having a deep trust, and which really comes from love, which really comes from our passion, our desire, and having trust that what we believe, what we're committed to, will manifest, and really putting our attention towards that opens up a lot more possibilities in how and what we create. And obviously there's still, we still need to do the work. We still need to get in there and make things happen. But the more we're able to operate from that space, the bigger and really more aligned things we're able to create. So that was the speed round. I think I got through it, and we left us about 15 minutes. What I'd love to do is have a discussion here. And in particular, have a couple questions here. If people want to share something else, totally open to that as well. But curious, what old world paradigm we may be stuck in, and what an alternate paradigm might look like and mean for you or your business. So, be curious as to how does, whether it's infinite possibility, infinite thinking, or surrender, or, focusing on love over fear. How do any of these concepts, how could they shift your business and, or life, and what would that mean for you? And then the other question I have here is, how do you see the opportunity for psychedelics to change the world, and what might be their biggest contribution? So I'll open it to anyone who wants to share. Can either hit me in the chat box, or just open just unmute yourself and chime in, and we'll go, one by one. Or if there's anything else you want to share outside of these questions, feel free as well. Anyone?
Hey, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to say, well said, Brandon. All the heart of your message, it lands so deeply. And in my industry, we're taking care of elders and young adults with mental and physical disabilities, and it's been very interesting paradigm shift to be able to just open up those frequencies and those channels for them. And that's one big thing that's kind of happening here in my world. Today I had like spirit songs with them, and they were all just, engulfed in the vibration and the devotion and the love, and really just steering from there. So that's how it's, impacted us. So thank you for your shares.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Sana here.
Hello.
Hi everyone. Thank you for this. I'm good. I wanted to mention that, so I work at Microsoft, Brandon, as you know, in artificial intelligence. And so it's interesting because for the past 6 months, I was anyway navigating to a place of changing careers or sort of closing this one out. And I find it interesting that I think anything new that I established would be in the new paradigm. But the old world thinking that I think really shows up, especially when you are with yourself, and having that internal conversation is, you know, the loss of income, right? That you're, or the wording around it, loss being the word, as opposed to what you're gaining in the new paradigm. So I wanted to add that in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's something that that we often struggle with. I talk a lot about being lost, and I really to get to the next place in our lives, we often need to be lost. I mean, a lot of us have this idea that we're just going to find the perfect, you know, like Frogger, find the perfect next thing to jump to. And oftentimes it really takes kind of going through being lost or being unclear or going through some sort of hardship to find that next place to be. And so I think, you know, as you know, with income, sometimes, you know, necessity creates, you know, beautiful opportunities for people, but the fear of that, you know, creates so much resistance and struggle, versus just kind of moving through that, which often leads to something better on the other end.
Right. Thank you. Yes, agreed.
Anyone else?
I can share. I struggled for the last couple of years with my business because I couldn't figure out what was next. Like I didn't feel very motivated by it. So I was like, what's next for my business? What's next for my business? I'm the driver of what's next. And the revelation that I had was, it's not really about what's next for my business. Like my life is about what's next for me. And that's one thing. And what's next for my business is something else. So I made this sort of decision to set my business free. I still manage it. I still am the, you know, spirit guide of my people. But once I decided that my business can grow, in some cases without me making all of the decisions, like I was holding it back by believing that I was the boss of it. So I think that was a big shift. And now I'm seeing, you know, I mean, we're completely shut down right now, but I'm watching people become empowered, you know, people making decisions about how they want to grow and change the business. And it's just been really like an amazing awakening.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I think control, the need for control is something that, you know, most of us as leaders and as business owners face. And, you know, the world, everything is moving on its own. You know, things are happening, you know, it's going to move with or without us. So yeah, being able to separate a bit from that and allow things to just kind of settle in and happen, and surrender into that, can often be a lot more rewarding and, you know, beneficial than trying to really fight for a particular direction that we may not necessarily come from our heart. Anyone else would like to share?
Brandon, if I may, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. First of all, forgive me, I caught the tail end of everywhere that you were, everything that you were covering. But still, if it's all right, I wanted to know if, given the times now, there's been a transition of people, in essence, monetizing a certain lifestyle. If you believe that for psychedelics, for the world of people that microdose and so on, if you can see that happening as well, someone stepping out and trying to, you know, publicly demonstrate that there can be a balance in that, of both the business, the monetization of it, the lifestyle of it, and then of course the heart conscious aspect of my giving back to everything around me. Because of course, you know, I mean, maybe the consensus might be of people that are exploring that world of psychedelics or plant medicine or so on and so forth are really trying to valiantly play that role and be that part of, you know, Mother Nature, myself, my other, you know, we're all part of one commune, metaphorically, literally, however you want to look at it. So I wanted to point that out for you, see if you see that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot there. I'll try to. So I think as far as, I don't know if are you asking about the business of psychedelics, or are you asking more about how that will be, in ways that will be utilized on a personal level, or both?
Yeah, like more so like you notice how there's been a humongous growth of like influencers that are just like, hey, look, I'm traveling the world, but I'm also able to make some money, yada yada yada. If you can see the same for people that are in that world of psychedelics, right, publicly doing that and showing that this is another lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely wouldn't call psychedelics a lifestyle. I mean, I think it's a very powerful tool to be used intentionally. And I think
Okay.
there are different ways that people can use that intentionally. And a lot of it comes to, I'm not a big microdoser myself, but I mean, I think if you're, have a very detailed practice, and you're journaling and meditating and leveraging it in certain intentional ways, there's certainly a lot that can be gained from it. I think there's a lot of risk to people trying to, jump in as this being kind of the panacea, save all. And I think when the intention, and I've seen this, I think when the intention and the integrity and things kind of seep out of it, you can lose a lot, and it can be quite dangerous. Also, I don't view it as, although I think there will be businesses made from it, and in a way we are one, I don't view this as a business. I don't think it's a great way to make money. And I think if you're coming into this type of work to make money, it's already probably a pretty dangerous equation. I think you really need to come into this work for a much broader mission and purpose, and be able to stay very tightly attuned to that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, being able to support your family or create a lifestyle so that it allows you to do this work. But I think, it'll be an interesting challenge for our society as these things get, probably synthesized and mass produced, and some of the intention and the wisdom and a lot of the stuff that really goes along with doing these in a really intentional space perhaps seeps away. And so it's definitely a big concern of mine. And I know for the work that we do, it'll always be critical that we do things with the utmost intention. I believe that the ceremony, the practitioners, the experience, the wisdom, everything around it is equally as important as are the psychedelics themselves. I think the psychedelics are an opening, and then it's really making sure that you have the right processes to integrate that, what's being opened, what the awarenesses that are being created, and and ideally are around and have access to the influences that are going to really elevate the way you operate and the way that we think about business in this planet. I think we have maybe time for one or two more questions if anyone has anything, and then I think Fabian will take over for the next session.
Can I ask you what's your preference for microdosing?
My preference? I really wouldn't claim to be an expert. I think when I microdose, it's largely been mushrooms. I prefer natural substances. I connect much more deeply with
Gaia, yeah.
Things from nature, and believe that they were put here for a reason for us, and prefer to leverage them as such. It's generally the only thing I would typically microdose with, but I'm more an occasional, I'm more about kind of some of the bigger ayahuasca experiences, on less frequent occasions, that I think have had the greatest impact for me. But I do see a benefit if people are really intentional about their practice. I think just doing these things and then trying to work and get more productivity, to me oftentimes feels misaligned with the intention. I think there are better ways to do that if that's the outcome that we're looking for.
Sure.
Anything else? Great. Well, thank you all. Appreciate you guys all joining in. Great seeing some of you that I know and love. And for those new people, great to connect. Hopefully this was helpful. If anyone wants to follow up on anything, I'm at Brandon at oneheart.com, which is oneheart.com. And that's also our website, obviously. You can learn more about what we do at oneheart.com, and happy to answer any questions, and appreciate the time, and hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.